Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Weight Loss Real Talk, where all I do is cut the silence and skip the BS. Today's topic: the best fasting schedule does not exist. Let's talk about it. So, there are many fasting schedules out there that you can pick from in order to help you achieve your weight loss goal. And yes, they all help you accomplish the same thing in terms of weight loss, but the problem is that none of them are perfect. No matter which fasting schedule you decide to follow, there's always going to be at least one thing about it that keeps it from being perfect, which is fine. That's normal. Again, the best fasting schedule does not exist, and if it did, everyone would be following it, including myself. But sadly, we do not have that yet. One thing I will say is that one could argue that there is a perfect schedule, and whatever that schedule is that is perfect for you is most likely not perfect for me, so on and so forth. So just to sort of give an example of what I mean, I do this all the time. The most common schedule that I follow is 19-5, which is where I fast for 19 hours and have an eating window of 5 hours. And typically within that 5-hour eating window, I have about 2 meals and 1 snack. Sometimes I have a snack, but not always. Completely depends on how I'm feeling that day. But the thing is, even though I follow that specific fasting schedule pretty regularly, despite how convenient that specific schedule is for me, I still bounce back and forth between 19-5 and 16-8. And the reason for that is because not all schedules are going to be well suited for every situation. And what I mean by that is sometimes a family friend has a birthday, sometimes there's a graduation coming up, a wedding, a casual friendly gathering, whatever the case may be. They all have this one thing in common, which we like to call food. And following a schedule like 19-5 may not be the best schedule to follow because depending on when you like to start eating and start fasting might not be convenient because a particular occasion might be conflicting in terms of time with your fasting schedule. So generally, a fasting schedule with a longer eating window is more convenient, which is exactly why I bounce back and forth between a longer fast and a shorter fast. In other words, going from a shorter eating window to a longer eating window. So I'm always going back and forth between these two schedules. And because I do that, again, that's why the best fasting schedule does not exist. Now, that's for me. For you, it may be completely different, but generally the same idea. Now, another thing to further emphasize the fact that the perfect schedule does not exist is because everybody's different. For example, you who may be watching this video right now might be a nurse, but even though you're a nurse, somebody else could be a construction worker or a coach or a bus driver. And because everybody's different, the perfect schedule cannot exist. Because if one were to say that 16-8 was perfect, we would have to say that what everybody does on a daily basis is generally the same, which is not true. Yeah, to a certain degree, but overall not the same. Some people have kids, and so because they have kids, they're generally busier, whereas some people don't have kids, and because they don't, they generally have more free time. So based on what's going on in your life, that is what you need to think about when picking a fasting schedule. And once you find the sweet spot, some people like to think it's the perfect schedule, not just for them, but for everybody, which, yeah, maybe, but that's typically not the case. It's kind of the same thing when and by we, I mean me and other creators that talk about using intermittent fasting for weight loss. It's the same idea when we all recommend 16-8 for beginners, but most of the time that's just an assumption. It actually feels more like because we have been doing intermittent fasting for such a long time, we see 16-8 as a beginner schedule, not just for ourselves, but for others. But that same schedule can seem extremely hard for other people. Therefore, it's not necessarily a beginner schedule. So if there was a perfect fasting schedule, what would that be? Honestly, if everyone had a full understanding on how weight loss worked, as in knowing that all we have to do is just be in a calorie deficit, and you wanted to add some fasting in there, I would probably have to say, I don't know, it's tough. Maybe 12-12. And honestly, I'm just guessing. fasting. And the reason I say 12-12 is because I feel like a majority of a lot of what everyone does can be done somewhere around 12 hours. And then the other 12 hours after you've done everything that you needed to do throughout the day, including your work, can just be used as fasting. So yeah, maybe 12-12, perhaps something a little less than that, but I don't know. See, the fact that I'm even trying to guess what that perfect schedule would be and still can't think of what it would be just goes to show that the perfect schedule does not exist and is most likely never going to exist, especially when you base it off of what everybody does in their life. Some might say 16-8, some might say 19-5, some might say OMAD, some might say alternate day, but then there are always those random times where, hey, it's my birthday today. Oh, did you know that it's so-and-so's graduation today? Oh, we actually have a big family dinner tonight, so on and so forth. And because those things happen, it's pretty much impossible to have a fasting schedule that is well suited for every situation. I would say the biggest reason why there is no such thing as the perfect fasting schedule is because of these random things that we have happening in our lives. And I would say if there was no such thing as birthdays or graduations, weddings, whatever type of occasion or event you can think of, if we didn't have any of these things, I think that following a specific fasting schedule would be so much easier because we don't have these things in the way. Not that following these things are wrong. They're absolutely normal. It's part of life. I'm just saying if we didn't have those things, it would be very easy to say what the perfect fasting schedule would be. I think that can only happen in a perfect world, which we do not live in. And because of that, you can pretty much throw the idea of a perfect fasting schedule in the trash. I wish it did exist, but it doesn't. And I just want to add a little bit more of an emphasis on what I said early on. Like if I say that I'm following 19.5 and I told you that I got results from following 19.5 and then recommend it to you as well to be something that you should try following in order to reach your results, whether you hear that from me or a different fasting schedule from someone else, take that advice with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, it is really going to depend on what you do during your weight loss journey. You're never going to eat the same exact thing that I do. You're never going to have the same exact routine as I do, which you can, but let's be honest, there's always going to be something within that routine that you're going to want to change for yourself. So finding the perfect fasting schedule for you is something that only you and you alone can discover. But anyway, I think I've said everything that I needed to say. Hopefully you guys learned something, and if you did, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. And with that said, I will see you guys in the next one.